Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Shalom. I'm David Mencer, Israeli government spokesman for the National Public Diplomacy Directorate here in the office of the Prime Minister on Monday, the 11th of November, day 402 of the October 7th War, this war for Israel's revival. On this Veterans Day, Armistice Day, when at the 11th hour of the 11th day on the 11th month, the guns fell silent, signalling the end of the First World War, it is with regret that I share with you that 782 Israeli soldiers have made the ultimate sacrifice in this war in defense of our homeland. Master Sergeant in the Reserves Guy Shabtai was 39 years old and from Jerusalem. He died of his wounds after being seriously injured on October 26th in battle in southern Lebanon. There are many achievements of the military in defense of Israel, but this war has exacted a very heavy price. Our hearts are with the bereaved families. Our fighters are operating boldly every single day and bravely to bring back our hostages and eliminate the terrorist threat to the citizens of the State of Israel. May their memories be a blessing forever. Next, an update from COGAT and Israel's humanitarian work in Gaza. Firstly, on healthcare. Last night, 24 patients and their escorts were transferred in 5 ambulances from Al-Wada Hospital to other hospitals within Gaza. The request was made by health officials to protect the patients from Hamas going through the humanitarian evacuation route. Also, the IDF has expanded the humanitarian area in Gaza. The area includes field hospitals, tent compounds, shelter, supplies, food, water, medicine, and medical equipment, all coordinated in cooperation with the international community. In the last 24 hours alone, 133 humanitarian aid trucks went into Gaza via Kerem Shalom and the Erez crossing in the north of Gaza. 27 of these trucks entered northern Gaza. This exposes the daily falsehoods coming out of the United Nations about impending, quote, famine. There is no famine. The IPC projections have always been incorrect. Just a consistent blood libel, unfortunately, that accuses Israel of starving Gazans when it was Hamas that caused this war, that Hamas steals the aid, that Hamas gets its hapless apologists in the United Nations to echo their claims on demand. For example, in the last day alone, only 58 trucks were collected from the Gazan side of the Kerem Shalom crossing by international organizations. That means that 800 trucks worth of aid are simply waiting for collection. I'll say that again. 800 trucks worth of aid are awaiting collection. They've been there for months, actually. I've been talking about them daily. Now, in the last 24 hours, 7 tankers of fuel and 6 of cooking gas needed for essential infrastructure went into Gaza, and a convoy of 28 trucks entered Gaza through Gate 96. And as I said before, there are 12 large bakeries operational in Gaza, 4 in northern Gaza and 8 in southern Gaza and central Gaza. Together they produce 3 million pita loaves every single day. Elsewhere, Israel's humanitarian efforts are continuous and ongoing. The Kisufim crossing near Khan Yunis is due to be reopened shortly. Let me give you an update of what's been going on over the last 6 months. Aid routes have been streamlined as channels for aid from Jordan and from Egypt and from the port of Ashdod here in Israel. In the field of medicine, field hospitals have been established. 560,000 children have been vaccinated against polio, all facilitated by Israel. And in addition, 4,000 medical patients have been evacuated for care outside of Gaza. And in preparation for the winter months, water lines have been repaired. 17 million litres of fuel have been facilitated to enter Gaza, and sanitation resources have also been improved. Next, on the dreadful attack on Israelis in Amsterdam, the Prime Minister has said that there is a clear line that connects the legal assault against Israel at the International Court in The Hague and the violent assault against Israelis on the streets of Amsterdam. In both cases, the intention is clear: to render Jews helpless, to deny our right to self-defense, and to deny our citizens their very right to life. All this on the anniversary of Kristallnacht, the infamous night of broken glass. A pogrom, Jew hatred, organized, coordinated Jew hatred. As the Prime Minister has made clear, brutal and violent assaults on Jews just because they are Jews. But the Prime Minister made clear that times have changed. Today we have the State of Israel. Today we can defend ourselves. There is no power in the world that will prevent us from defending ourselves against Iran and their proxies, Hamas, Hezbollah, the Houthis. There is no power in the world that will stop us bringing all of our hostages home and toppling the Hamas terrorist regime. There is no power in the world that would tell Israeli mothers to stop fighting for their daughters that are being sexually abused by the Hamas monsters for more than 402 days now. There is no power in the world that will push us to commit a public suicide and stop defending ourselves. The actions of the UN have a very clear effect. They embolden Jew hatred. The UN, unfortunately, is imbued with a credibility and a respect that it does not deserve. The international media willfully ignores the glaring shortcomings of the United Nations in general and the International Court of Justice in particular. Attacks of this kind in Amsterdam, whether on the streets of that city or in the courts of The Hague, threaten not only Israel, but endanger the entire world. And as the Prime Minister said yesterday, we have learned something from our history, that wild attacks that start against Jews never end with the Jews. In the end, they spread to all of society and pass from country to country until they burn all of humanity. So our message to the Jew haters is that Israel will do whatever is necessary to defend ourselves and our citizens. Next, on the election in the United States of America, following that election, US President-elect Donald Trump, I can confirm that the Prime Minister has spoken to Mr. Trump on 3 separate occasions. These have been important discussions. As the Prime Minister said, the Prime Minister and the President-elect see eye to eye on the Iranian threat, as well as expanding peace in the region. So that's the end of our briefing today. I'll take your questions in the chat. Please add your media outlet and we will take them now. First question is from David Clement from the News Forum. Lebanon's Prime Minister has called for an immediate ceasefire. What conditions would Israel accept for there to be for that ceasefire to happen? Thank you very much for that question, David. Look, the reason we went to war against Hezbollah in Lebanon is very, very simple. We've had tens of thousands of our people displaced from their own homes in Israeli sovereign territory. By who? By the Hezbollah terrorist organization, which receives Iranian guidance and finance and is directed and continues to this day its incessant firing of rockets and UAVs at us here in Israel. They cause a heavy cost to innocent people here in Israel, as well as people in Lebanon as well, but no more. That is our condition. Israel is operating with force against this terrorist threat from Lebanon, as would any country, David, any country intent on its survival and committed to the sovereignty and the security of its own citizens. So our message to the government of Lebanon is that we will do what is required in order to return all the residents safely to their homes. And we are operating towards this end via both talks on the matter, which you refer to in your question, which are being led by the US and other countries, as well as the military option which we are taking forward. We will not accept, David, we will not accept the existence of a terrorist military array on our northern border. No more. We are tackling this Iranian threat, we are taking down this Iranian threat, and our people will be allowed to return to their homes in sovereign Israeli territory. Next question here is from Leor at the Washington Post. Did the Prime Minister address the Beeper operation in Lebanon this week, as reported in the media that he directed the operation? And you've got a quote here which says the pager operation was carried out despite opposition of senior officials in the defense establishment, Mr. Netanyahu reportedly said. Thank you for that question, Leor. I too have seen those reports, and I've got nothing more to add to them. Next question from Joel Pollack at Breitbart News. Could Russia play a role in securing southern Lebanon? Thank you for that question, Joel. I've got nothing more to add on that point. What we do know is that Iran, who is behind Hezbollah, is supplying not only Hezbollah, but it's also supplying the onslaught against Ukraine. That is now clear for everyone to see. And it is incumbent on all nations, actually, all nations, to do everything in their power, both in influence and in other ways as well, to curtail this Iranian threat. And on this point, let me just make clear that we are prepared when it comes to Iran, who is behind Hezbollah, for every scenario, both defensive and offensive. We are very closely monitoring the developments from Iran and its proxies. We will strike at anyone who acts or plans to harm us. Of that you can be sure. Next question here is from Joel Pollack. Given that Hamas refuses to negotiate for the release of the hostages, why don't we see a more aggressive Israeli military push to rescue them? Thank you for that question, Joel. The Prime Minister made clear on the elimination of Yahya Sinwar that the freeing the hostages is our highest priority. Now, there are things which I can share with you and things which I can't, but you can be sure that freeing, as the Prime Minister has said, freeing the hostages in whichever way is our highest priority. Now, in these latest talks, I can share with you, in the latest negotiations, let me just say this. It is Hamas that continues to impose impossible conditions. Next question is a question from also from Joel Pollack. Given that the Houthis from Yemen continue to fire at Israel, have Israeli efforts to deter future attacks failed? Thank you for that question, Joel. Let me put it to you this way. We have a duty to dismantle this axis of evil that we face. So, and we know that these are what we've done against the Houthis. These are calculated blows against the Houthis. No one should be in any doubt of our right and our duty to defend ourselves against the Houthis. No one, no longer will terrorist armies be on our borders, and whether it's the Houthis in Yemen or Hamas, who will no longer rule Gaza, or Hezbollah, who will no longer sit on our northern border. Very often, as the recent IDF footage has shown, a few meters from our border, complex tunnel complexes aimed to invade us, invade this country. This will not happen anymore. And we're also, I should be clear with you, severing the Iranian pipelines of weapons supplies to Hezbollah, as well as the Houthis as well. Now, let me just make this point very, very clear. The Houthis should understand from the action we have taken against them that we know precisely what their capabilities are, and we know precisely how to counter that Iranian threat. We know precisely how to counter that threat. Okay, I think that looks like the last question. Yeah, that's the last question. Good. So if there aren't any more questions, thank you for joining us. Please do stay safe, and we'll see you at the next briefing. You can contact us in the usual way for any other questions that you may have. Thank you. Bye-bye.